What's up, guys? Welcome to the Average American Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan. It is the podcast by the average American for the average American. I compile my thoughts, news, things that I think are of importance, and I go ahead and lay it out for people in a more layman's terms. Obviously, there's individuals, if you're interested, that do a much more deep dive, but I'm trying to engage people who maybe don't want to have to wade through hours of information like I like to do because I'm a psycho. So today I'm not going with any notes. I'm not going with anything like that. I'm just gonna go purely off of what I've been seeing. First off, it's been about 10 days, I think 9 or 10 days since Charlie Kirk's death. Rest in peace to him. You know, hope his family's doing okay. I know that his wife has made some statements, and she's definitely probably going through it, trying to figure out how to navigate being a widow at such a young age. Um, for a person whose death felt pretty needless. Um, and that leads me into the whole. A lot of people have been talking about free speech. A lot of people on the right, especially, have been talking about. We just saw Jimmy Kimmel's having issues with Disney. They're probably going to lay him off indefinitely. Probably put an end to Jimmy Kimmel's late night show, which and late night doesn't do numbers anymore, so I'm not sure that that has a huge effect on their bottom line. Um, but I do have an issue with the fact that the right acts like the left is the only ones who do any kind of you know, speech harboring, limitation stuff like that. I mean, we just saw with Pam Bondi, she just said in a quote, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the exact quote, but she essentially said that, this is hate speech, what they're saying about Charlie Kirk and celebrating his death, and that we will target this and not allow it. And I'm sorry, but even as someone who thinks that the celebration of a person's death, a public figure at that, someone who a lot of people resonated with and they liked and they found solace in his ideas and in comfort in what he was saying, I don't agree, you know, with this hate speech term. Hate speech is terrible. I mean, it's dumb. What the fuck even is hate speech? It's stuff that's hateful. People have been saying hateful shit forever. There's nothing different about it. Hate speech, racism, all this stuff. They're bad. It's easy to condemn them, and it's correct to condemn them. But, as much as you don't like it, that's what free speech is. Free speech is allowing people to say things you don't like because you, in turn, are going to say things that they don't like. If they're a racist and you say, I'm not a racist, well, they're not going to like you for not being a racist. If, like such with the left and the right, you're like, I don't support trans, I don't think that's a thing. Well, then the other side, in the same sense, is going to have negative things to say about you. You're a bigot, you're a Nazi, all the trigger words that we've heard that as the more they get repeated, the more dehumanizing it is to a certain group of people. Let's be realistic about that. Um, but it's a dangerous path. You had Trump, I think it was maybe a month ago now, 3 weeks. He said that if you're a state, state government that gets caught um, or has record of criticism of Israel for what they've done, you won't receive FEMA. And that punishes the people that voted for you. I mean, that makes no sense to me. How are you going to say we can't have our own thoughts and opinions on this, you know, entity that essentially is draining us of money because of the wars in the Middle East? Not that I'm here to talk about that today, but those are facts, and I will get into that in a different episode. And I have some stuff recorded that's been about that. But really, it comes down to the fact that no matter what someone says, you know, they should be allowed to say it. Horrendous as it may be, it's funny because I see this kind of hypocrisy on the left, and I see these, the people, Democratic liberals that are far left radicalism, shouting, especially young people shouting like, "Oh, what happened to free speech? What happened to this?" It's like, weren't you guys the ones who were this last 4 years? Not only were you limiting what was allowed to be said on social media platforms. I mean, not you specifically, but the administration you supported. Zuckerberg said that. We saw it with the Twitter files. You can't argue or deny that COVID information was being suppressed. Things that would have been very important to know while this whole pandemic was going on were suppressed. The people were threatened to lose their licenses. They lost their jobs. They were persecuted. I mean, this whole thing is crazy. So I don't want to hear from Democrats that, oh, free speech, what happened to it? You could shut the fuck up because you guys were proponents of limiting whatever speech you felt was wrong. But now that the other shoe has dropped and the other people in power are telling you, like, you can't say this, you're like, oh, what happened to it? Like, let's not do that. Let's not do that at all. You know what you're about. You're about limiting people who you don't like. And that's such a dangerous path. And that's probably why you lost the election. I mean, realistically, that's probably why you lost the election. People are tired of the stuff being forced. Like, I'm not a bigot because I don't support kids being trans. I'm not a racist because I think that black people have a certain victimization mentality that has affected their culture and has held them back. I mean, it really has, statistically proven. And, you know, there's so many other things that go into it that the left has supported over the last 4 years that really radicalized a lot of individuals. But let's also be realistic here, that the right, they're starting to get into the point where they're doing it too. This death of Charlie Kirk and all this stuff, and it feels like, you know, this administration is using this as a way to kind of do this and limit the things that they don't like. And I mean, it's a red flag on both sides. You cannot, I don't care who's in power, what it is, if you want as an American to have your civil liberties intact, the first one, they made it the first one, the First Amendment. And the Bill of Rights says that you have the freedom of speech, of saying whatever you want, whether or not it's right or wrong. But it's just funny, I think, that the left was saying certain things, and now they're talking about freedom of speech. Weren't you guys the one who said you can have freedom of speech, but you're not free from consequences? I mean, that's what Jimmy Kimmel was going through. That's what Stephen Colbert is going through. He criticized his network with his free speech that he used on the platform he's provided. Well, guess what? You're losing money, brother. So now you're going to get shit canned. Jimmy Kimmel celebrated Tucker Carlson losing his job. These are facts. And then he's going to turn around and expect sympathy for it? I mean, the hypocrisy is insane. And it's like I've stated, it's not just one side or the other, but it does seem that the liberal idea is to, I don't know, hold people accountable to the standards that we would never hold ourselves to, do what I say, but not as I do. And that's why you lose so many people. At least on the right, I know that there are people who criticize the decisions that Trump has made so far. And as a centrist, libertarian is what I identify myself as. I have criticisms of the things he's done. There's been a few good things, but the job market's really bad right now. And prices on everything just keep going up. Every time I go to the grocery store, shit just keeps fucking going up, dude. Shrimp started at $12.50, now it's $15.92. Like, what are we doing? This is not making anybody's life better. Yes, we need to bring back infrastructure. And I was happy with the tariffs that we got. IBM, Apple, several other companies, OpenAI, to commit to billions of dollars of infrastructure to build in the United States. That's great. That is a great thing to get us back on track. But the reality is, if we as the middle class people, as the lower middle class and poor, don't see any benefit of this, don't see anything to improve our lives, the ability to own a home, afford rents, all of these things that we all clearly experience and know are just out of control. They're out of control. And, you may not like it or you may not agree with it, but Dave Smith, who has a podcast, Part of the Problem, he's also been on Joe Rogan, if you watch any of that, really, really smart guy, but he made a statement the other day. And all these things we're paying for the Iraq war right now. The $10 trillion they knew they couldn't get from us in taxes that they just went ahead and printed and borrowed and did everything else. That's what the inflation is. That's what we're dealing with. And they're not stopping printing money. They're funding other foreign wars. Other foreign wars. This whole thing in the Middle East. Why are we bombing Somalia? Why are we doing all these things? And it's it's one of those things where the less free speech we have, the less right I'd have to criticize this, that you'd have to criticize this, the access of information. I mean, we're already being listened to and monitored and all that with the Patriot Act. And then you look at what happened with COVID, and that's just kind of doing the same thing. This fear to force people to do stuff and comply, and but I think they've played that card too many times now, and too many of us are aware of this. Um, and the big issue for me is that the centralized government, regardless of who's in power, is all about limiting the people. You guys fail to realize, and I say you guys is a reference to the people that are just like, oh, that side's bad, oh, that side's bad. And you forget to realize that, like, they're politicians, okay? At the end of the day, their job is to sell you on an idea that they think you believe in, that they could say, oh, I'm gonna do this, and you're like, that's great, that's fantastic, I love that. Listen, they got me in the last election. I voted for Trump because of things. And like you said, he's done some things, but overall, I think this administration has been bad. And let's be realistic. Is that I've had some criticisms of the left here in the beginning, but the right, I mean, there's gonna be people who are like, no, Trump's been doing great. He's back. America's great again. And there's a lot of things about America that are not great again, and are not even close. And I get it. He's been 6 months and all that kind of stuff, and you got to give the guy some time. But I mean, what has he really done besides some infrastructural shit? Um, it's just mind-boggling, I suppose, for me to sit here and consume this information about this, and then I see people on the right who are like, "Oh, it's the left." Bro, they've got you guys pitted against each other. Now, listen, I don't like the radical left liberal mindset as much as the next person. Might be the thing I hate the most. You know, feelings over facts, all this kind of bullshit. I'm sorry, I'm not with it. Facts don't care about your feelings. You don't like statistics. That's not statistics' fault. Um, I don't know what to tell you there. You have to get with the point of truth. You guys are the science. Science is everything crowd. But then when the statistics don't fit, you're not gonna, you know, we're not gonna roll with the statistics. We're gonna go with our feelings. But then you'll roll with the science when it comes to COVID. I mean, understand your level of hypocrisy. It's You cannot be like that and think that people are, going to rock with you and stay on your side and be, with what you're doing as far as both politically, economically, socially. You got to leave people's kids alone. You got to stop trying to force your ideas on them. You got to stop making it seem like you're the ones with all the answers. The reality is we're all going through this and none of us have the answers. But then on the right, you've got people that are saying, "Oh, see, they'll kill us, they'll murder us," and it's like those types of things are outliers. Now, not to say that there isn't some evidence to show that the left radicalist, the liberal extremist, is more closely associated with a domestic terrorist organization than it would be for a right. But I think that's because you guys haven't learned how to tap into your emotions and deal with them. So, rational human being is going to go, man, this person really makes me mad. So I'm going to try to find ways to, debunk their arguments. I'm not going to shoot them in public or stab them, or let crazy people back out onto the street. I mean, all these things that these liberal cities and stuff do. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. And I think that's one part that the Republican Party does have correct is the laws and creating a law-based society. Now, we can go into Trump using the National Guard to stop crime. I mean, is there a certain point where you say militarized authorization becomes a necessity when criminals refuse to adhere to laws, no matter how many times they get in trouble? You could have a semantic debate about that and say, there is a time in which the necessity for it overwhelms the civil liberties that people refuse to adhere by that they are given. Because then you're talking about anarchy and chaos, and no society functions on anarchy and chaos. So you have to have order, you know. But it's very interesting to me, I think, um, how the algorithms that we have push the things that piss us off. I've seen so many videos and people detailing videos of individuals celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. I mean, obviously, that was a horrendous thing. It's an atrocity for you to say this guy deserved to die. He was massively more influential than you. You disagree with his politics and his identity. The same could be said about you. So let's pump the brakes on that. And you losing your job for it, I mean, it is what it is. This is something that we all agree is bad, and you decided, I don't think it's bad, and you're an outlier for it. That's just the truth. And so the consequences of it have been laid at your doorstep. But I don't know, man. We're spiraling, I think, a little bit as a country. They keep us divided. They keep you thinking that your neighbor's the fucking problem. The guy across the hall from me is the reason that I don't have more money than I should. When in reality, it's because the job market's ass. They oversaturated college degrees, which I don't even have one. But let's point that out. College costs way more than it used to. You put yourself in immense amounts of debt for a potential possibility to get, your foot in the door somewhere. Um, it feels like it's just lies after lies, and it probably has always been that way. But now it's so evident. Like they don't try to hide it. They're not trying to fool you anymore. They're just doing it in front of you, and they know that you're so complicit and that you're so placated by your technology, by the funny videos on Instagram or Facebook, TikTok, whatever the fuck you're on. And don't get me wrong, social media platforms are great for discourse, but the problem is we're coming to a head and a point where it's no longer discourse. I've had people unfriend me because I said that Charlie Kirk wasn't a racist and that, he tried to have, public civil discourse in a way that nobody else does. And I had people unfriend me for that. And it's like, bro, can we talk about the opinions? Can we have a discussion where you go, well, this is how he was racist? And I go, well, I haven't seen that. And I look at that and I go, but these are a million other examples. And you go, well, here's a couple different. And we compare our notes and we come away from it either agreeing or disagreeing, but knowing that it's not black and white, that all this stuff is gray. And I just find that so much of this propagandized media finds us and pushes a narrative on us. And then we believe that narrative because you see it so much. It's the same thing as like a confidence boost. You say, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, I'm awesome. Oh, then, one day you believe it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, dude, I am awesome. And then you'll tell everybody about it. The same thing happens here. You constantly see violence, division, collusion from one person or another. We don't talk enough about the billionaires that fund all these weird stuff. Bill Gates, George Soros, Elon's in the public because you guys are mad about him for certain things. And I don't agree with all his ideas, but why aren't you mad at George Soros? Why aren't you mad at Bill Gates, who's trying to replace meat? And listen, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, that's your full right. And I have no qualms about you wanting to do that. But you wanting to take meat away from me, I'm sorry, that's fucked up. I don't agree with that at all. You're trying to infringe your beliefs on my rights as an American, as a human being. And that's absolutely ridiculous. And they're trying to do it on all kinds of levels. And, we have to stop being mad at each other. I can agree to disagree with your opinions and still get along with you. We will find common ground. But you being so mad about something that may or may not have even a direct impact on your life because you think this person's a bigot or this person's bad because their opinions and beliefs don't agree with you. You get to a point where the dehumanization of each other starts to really radicalize itself, and we really start to see violence. I mean, we're seeing political violence now, which is a slippery slope. I mean, do you want to be Mexico, the cartels, where they had, in their last election, there was 37 people who were murdered that were running for office constantly from either cartel? I mean, do you want these types of things? I don't. I would love to have civil discourse. And it just feels like there's so many people who are not able to do that are radicalized in one way or another. And why is it that having a discussion about something you disagree with, even if it's something fundamental, makes you so angry that you no longer see him as a person? We all get angry, man. I get seethingly angry about shit. But I always take some time and step back and the images and thoughts that run through my head are not, based in reality. They're not things that I truly believe. They're things that are moved by my emotions and which we don't always have control over. So if you know that you're that kind of person, why aren't you pulling back and saying, wait, give me a second. Let me process this information before I go ahead and attack somebody for a different belief? I mean, legitimately, we're talking about the erosion of civil liberties, things that we all take advantage of. Your ability to bitch about me is the same as my ability to bitch about you. And the right, like, stop trying to take guns away. You people don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing when you're talking about taking guns away. I don't even have any guns. I would like to get some, but I don't even have any guns. And I firmly believe in the Second Amendment right because you know why? That guy is going to help protect you against the government when they come for all your rights. You know, we complain about, China and it being communist and all that stuff, but you're not that far from it. Your belief system. And I'm sorry, there's nowhere in the world that socialism or communism has ever been successful. And you go, well, it's never really been tried the way it's supposed to. That's because people are corrupt, stupid. There's no possible way to try it because people are corrupt. We're easily corruptible individuals. There's no way for you to properly try the paper plan laid out form of communism or socialism or Marxism, whatever it is you believe, that can, actually be done successful. Because once you give centralized power to someone and rely on them, you're under their boot, you're under their thumb. And now if you speak out against them, they'll withhold you. They'll take your kids, they'll take your money, they'll take your food. I mean, look at what happened in Canada for the COVID strike. They froze truckers' bank accounts. They froze you the bank accounts. That doesn't concern you. That doesn't scare you. That could easily happen to you. Be ostracized by society and have to live in the woods and figure out how to do it on yourself. Most of you wouldn't survive. I don't know that I would either. I don't know that I have the survival skills for that. So I will continue to put my best foot forward on the liberty stand front and say that you are allowed to call me, a racist white honky piece of shit if that's truly how you feel. And I will take that on the chin because it does not bother me because I know that's not truly who I am. And the reality is you can live your life however you want, at least under my belief system, but you can't force your way of life on other people. That's when you meet resistance. That's when you piss people off, okay? You're trying to say, well, you're a bad person because you won't, verify my identity. That's not my responsibility. In no way, shape, or form is it my responsibility to verify your identity. That's you not knowing who you are and you wanting other people to confirm it for you so that you can feel in place somewhere. But the reality is it's your responsibility to figure out who the hell you are. And we're doing that every day. Everybody's doing that all the time, trying to figure out who they are. What makes me go? What's my purpose? What am I doing? Some people have kids, some people have jobs, But taking out these mixed feelings you have because you don't know who you are, and then someone tells you can't be that thing, and so you're like, shoot them. I'm sorry, that's just not the answer. And that's a dark path you're going down. That's a path of loneliness and evil and despair, and it'll never bring you joy. You'll never get away from it. You'll never be like, oh, I've killed enough people now. That's not how it works. You'll constantly want to, do that. Anybody who speaks out against your opinions or beliefs, you'll be like, kill them. And I mean, I don't know about you, but that's not the world I want to live in. That's not the country that I was born into. That's not the life that I imagined I would have. And you guys preach about it's 2025. Can't we be more civilized? How are these issues? Take a step back and look at yourself on both sides of the aisle, man. You hate that person because they don't believe the same way as you. You hate that person because they're confused about their gender identity. Well, that's their problem. That's not yours. And unless they make it your problem, which I'm not arguing that they don't try to do, but unless they make it your problem or make you uncomfortable or try to incite violence against you, then your beliefs are your own. And you need to keep those opinions to yourself. You don't need to be in public disrespecting those people. The common, polite, shared spaces that we have should be dedicated to both people. If you see someone with a Christian, they're in full suit after they went to church, your first thought should not be, what a bigoted asshole. That person might be one of the kindest, sweetest human beings you know, and you'll never give them the chance to talk to you because you've had preconceived notions about who they are based on things that you don't know enough about. And that's what media does. Media, social media, propagandized farms, bot farms, all these things that are used to manipulate our emotions in a way that gets you riled up. I mean, think about it. Rage engages you. Anything. When I'm happy, I'm chill. Nothing's. But when I'm angry, oh, I'm typing. I'm typing. I'm liking. Making comments on stuff, and that's what gets us going. That's what the algorithm loves is the more information, the content, all of the engagement, all of these things are this data that they harp on that's so valuable in terms of both what it can tell you about a person and their physical value of money. You know, I don't know. It's a we've been divided for a while, and I won't argue that the division will ever change, but you have to be able to agree to disagree. Stop. Stop fucking saying that, I just can't talk to them. Well, then everything is broken down now. And the reality is, if you can't talk to them, we are North and South, civil war. They stopped talking and they decided they would be a separate country. And if that's the truth, then all of you can take California, it'll fit you. And you can jackhammer it off and let it float out on its own. And maybe that's not the answer either. I don't know that any of us really have the answer. But once you stop talking to people, you start dehumanizing them. Once civil discourse falls apart, that's when we have a real fucking problem. That's when we stop being humans and we stop being a society and we start being secular and people start committing atrocities against each other. And that's when all of the liberties that we've been given and that our ancestors fought for, to give us to try to build this nation, those erode. They become irrelevant. And all you're left with is anger and hate. The thing that you so adamantly, rave against, all of us. We so adamantly rave against anger and hate. We have to end racism. We have to eliminate bigotry. I'm sorry, it can't happen. You need to give up on that idea. What you should always strive for is to teach who you can and who's willing to listen, your children included, the realities of the world. And that people are different and they're allowed to be different. And just because they're different doesn't mean they're bad. And you are allowed to not agree with the differences and still have a mutual, polite respect for each other and not say the entitled like they are living wrong. Da 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 da. That's everything that's made on both sides of the coin here. And so I guess I just wanted to make this video because I've been feeling so, confused in my own emotions about what it is, but I feel reaffirmed talking out loud about it and the fact that I am someone who would defend the liberties that were given to us by the people who founded this country with my life. I would do that. I personally believe that because that is how you provide a good future for your children is to ensure that this country's foundation does not erode because the people at the top wish it to for control, money, and power reasons. You really should start looking into who's creating the problems for you because I promise it's not your neighbor who believes in God or your neighbor who's got a nose ring and blue hair. Don't talk about those subjects with each other. Find the common ground, and then vote however you want and hold the policymakers accountable. You know, taxpayer money shouldn't pay for your transition surgery. Sorry, that's true. Taxpayer money also shouldn't fund foreign wars for Israel or anybody else, and we shouldn't be basing our decisions on what they want to do. The reality is that we've gotten so far away from caring about the people that live in this country that everybody cares about somebody somewhere else. And I'm not saying that the genocide in Gaza isn't a horrible thing. I have my own opinions on that, and it's a topic I'll cover at some point and release information on. But right now, we need to fix this. We got to fix us because you cannot go into a relationship as a broken person and expect to fix the person you're with. It's just not possible. You have to fix yourself first. I don't know. Leave your comments, thoughts, concerns. Um, I'd love to talk to people about this subject. Obviously, I've said that civil discourse is super important. Um, and yeah, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thanks. Have a good weekend.